Today is a quick shot video. I'm going to share my settings for bamboo cutting boards right now on LaserNug. Welcome back on this beautiful day of spring on February 4th. As you folks know by now, I issue out the quick shot videos just to get you quick access to some what I think are safe or nice settings for different types of materials that you can test out on your bolt. In the second part of this video, I'll give you a little background or a little context to how I came to those settings. So grab your pen and your paper. So I actually ended up with 3 different types of settings for bamboo. I have a light engrave, a medium engrave, and a dark engrave. I couldn't decide on them, and I kind of liked each one because I think each one of them have different attributes that might be helpful. So here's my light, medium, and dark engrave settings on the bolt. Your light engrave is at 500 millimeters per second speed. Set your max power at 50%, min power at 10%, and set your lines per inch, or your DPI, some of us call it, at 400. Medium setting, 400 millimeters per second, 50 max, 10 min power settings, and 400 DPI. The dark engrave I set at 400 millimeters per second, 50 and 10 again, but I increased the lines per inch to 500 DPI. They seem to work really nice. So give those a shot, see what you think. If you have any suggestions or any changes or any variations that you've used that work better, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear about them. Now in the second part of the video, I'll tell you how I got there, and then we're going to do a couple of engravings just with a new design in light, medium, and dark engrave settings, so you can see what they look like. So the bamboo was an interesting wood. In fact, it's the first cutting board type material I've tried to test on, but I think I've got some pretty good settings. I like them. Bamboo is kind of interesting. If you take a look at the board, you'll notice that in a number of areas, you see these little marks all over the board. I believe that's where the fibers are joined on the various bamboo strips across the board. And that plays a little bit of havoc when you engrave on it, especially if you're engraving crosses, these little marks or these little end fibers. The second thing I've noticed about bamboo, and I found online, is that it's not a consistent grain or a consistent wood. So if you're using maple or cherry or walnut, those kind of things have a very natural set of rings or nice natural contours to them. Your bamboo strips are light and dark. And so if you're engraving across a number of the strips, you may find that your engraving is going to be lighter or darker in certain areas as it passes through each of these strips of bamboo. It's not a terrible thing, but if you find that as you're engraving, that's, I believe, the reason why. Like any new material, I wasn't really sure where to start, so I started off with settings right around what I use for Baltic birch, because it's the only thing I had, and I knew that should be reasonably safe for wood. And then I went from there, and then I continued to adjust different combinations of speed, power, and lines per inch until I came across a few of the engravings which I really enjoyed or I really liked. I noticed that in some cases there was too much power, and in fact you may be able to see it in the camera, but it's almost like it started to damage the wood. So I had to back it off. I also gave it the old try with the Aztec calendar. Remarkable how small that is and how detailed every line is on the light, medium, and the dark settings. Turned out really nice, and it's actually quite spectacular that I shrunk this calendar to a 3-inch diameter, and you can still very clearly see all the detail in that calendar. In fact, I'll throw it under my magnifying glass just for a minute and let you folks take a look across the board. You might be able to see it a little bit better. As I went through the various combinations, I could see different inconsistencies or differences in each of the engravings. My light engraving, for example, you can feel it with your finger, but it's not very deep. The medium engraving I'm using, you can feel clearly it's a little deeper, and of course your dark is the deepest. I understand from watching a lot of woodworking shows that when you're doing cutting boards, you don't want really deep engravings or very minute engravings, because that gives the opportunity for food particles to get caught inside that engraving. So all three of these, I think, depending on the type of logo or design you're going to use, should be adequate for the bamboo cutting board. Plus, it gives you three different distinct looks. So I took one side to play with as I tried to test different combinations, and I left the other side clean for today's video. I pulled up a new design up into Lightburn, and what I'd like to do is just recreate it 3 times, once with the light setting, the medium setting, and the dark setting, so we can see a nice, clean, crisp design on a blank canvas. After that, I'm going to add it into the library in Lightburn that I've created, because I'd like to be able to keep those settings so I don't have to keep trying to find the page in my notebook that I tested it in. So let's get her done. We'll throw the board into the bolt and we'll start our engraving. So we'll jump into Lightburn. This SVG file is just a simple template I bought off the internet. There's a ton of them out there, as I'm sure you've found by now, and at pretty reasonable prices. I chose this one because there's a couple of different fonts, a little bit of floral patterns, a couple of straight lines, and I'm going to add our family name in the middle here. So I'm going to come to the left here. I'm going to click on the font command, and I am going to come back to the left. I'm going to click on my select tool. I just wanted to thank Robert from Computer Creations for giving me the suggestion to increase the size of my cursor, but it also comes with a little bit of problems trying to figure out where I'm clicking. Okay, there we go. Potter. Let me shrink it down a little bit. It's kind of large. If I can figure out how to do that. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to change that font. So I'm going to go up here in the middle to my font. And I think I'm going to use, let's use this guy here. There we go. I'm going to grab my Potter and I'm going to put him in the middle. I'll make him a little bit bigger. That's about right. Grab it and move it over. I want to center this, so I'm going to come down here. I'm going to pull up from the bottom right to the top left, and then I'm going to come up here to the middle of the top toolbar, and right here you'll see the vertical alignment tool. So I just want to make sure it's all well aligned. I'm going to come to V-center and watch what happens to Potter. There we go. Well, now we're all centered. I'm going to come to the left here, and I want to group that. This is the design we're going to use, and we're going to recreate it 3 times on our bamboo cutting board. What I'd like to do is I'm going to try to size it so that I can put each one of the 3 down the middle. I don't want to engrave over these fiber marks because it tends to mar your engraving. So I'm just going to find a strip here, which is, I think, about 3 inches, and I'm going to size my design so I can get 3 of them in here down the middle, and then we'll burn them. So I know I have about 3 inches by 2.5 inches high. So just gonna, I think the width is most important, so I'm just gonna grab and I'm gonna watch the top left hand until I get this to about 2.5 inches high. And I think that'll do it right there. So let's start with our first settings. My light setting. So I'm going to come over here to my black layer. I'm going to double click it. And I need my light setting at 500 speed. I already have my power settings from yesterday, so 50 and 10. And on light, I want 400 lines per inch. So I'm just going to back this off. Okay, 500, 50, 10. We're on fill mode. 400 lines per inch. I think we're good. I'm going to click that. Okay, everything looks good. I've got my origin in the top left corner, which is where I'd like it. And we can always come up here to the middle, now that we've highlighted our design, and we can click preview, just to see what it's going to look like. I have it optimized, so let's play that. We know it's 2 minutes and 22 seconds. And now we can take a quick look at what it's supposed to look like when it's done. You can speed that along. Okay. Bolt's ready. So let's click OK. I have that highlighted. My origin is correct. I have my settings. Let's send it to the bolt. We'll call that BCBL. Let's click on that and listen for the beep. Okay. I'm going to set my origin or my first right up here in the top left because I want to be able to get them right down between all of these fiber marks. I'm going to square the board to the side scale. That looks about right. If I was doing this for money, I would make sure this was perfectly square. But I'm going to drop my Z-axis down a little bit. And now I'm going to bring my laser over. And I'm going to set my origin right over here. Nudge commands come in so handy. I think that should work. I'm going to set the origin there. I want to frame it. Yep, that's good. Let's autofocus. Excellent. Let's burn some bamboo. Okay, we'll jump back into light burn. I still have my design highlighted. I want to change to my medium settings now. So I'm going to double click my black layer. My medium settings were 400 speed per second. $50 and 10 and 400 DPI. So the only thing I've changed on that, I believe, was the speed. We'll click OK. Everything is still the same. Let's send that to the bolt. We're going to call this BCBM for medium. Listen for the beep. Good to go. Here at the bolt, I'm just going to bring my origin down for my second run. I want to try to make sure that I don't overrun the second one. So let's just set the origin there for a minute and frame it. Yeah, that works. I'm just going to move it up a tiny bit because I want to leave room for the third one. Try there. Oh, that's going to be tight. That'll work. Origin, I don't need to autofocus because I've already autofocused. Let's run the job. Okay, last but not least, let's grab our black layer again, double click, and let's set this up for our dark engrave. Move our origin down so we can get our third in. And there's our finished product. That's your light, medium, and your dark. Your medium and dark are very similar, but when you feel with your fingers, the dark is engraved just a little deeper than your medium, but they're very similar finishes. I love all three of them. That's why I decided to keep 3 different settings, because they all look great. Very little residue or smoke residue around any of these, except, as you can see, on the larger letters. And here on the dark, there's much more residue around the engrave here. It's especially obvious, I'm not sure if you're going to see it in the camera, but when you look down the grain of the wood, you can really tell where you see smoke residue and where you don't. It's relatively clean overall, but it still needs a little work. I'm just going to give this a really light sand. I'll use the 180. I could use the 220, but I think it's just going to need a little sand here. I'm going to go with the grain. We'll give it a wipe. If I was selling this piece, I'd do a little more to it, of course. And I'd certainly get it sanded down with a 220 or a 320 before I put any type of mineral oil on it. And it's looking pretty good. I was pretty surprised at one product that I've tried again. You folks may remember from several videos ago, I attempted to use this product on something other than wood. And in fact, I can't remember what surface it was. I think it was tumblers. It's actually not meant for tumblers. It's called Laser Clean Plus. It's fully biodegradable. It's made with organic materials. There's no chemicals, no toxins, no solvents. It's primarily made out of corn and soy and all natural. It's for wood. I tried it. It works. Take a look. You probably can't tell, but there is a tiny little bit of residue still in there, or embedded in these grains, or the grain of the wood. I think if I sanded a little more, of course, I could get it out. But just a little squirt. Rub it with the grain. And give it a minute or 2 to dry. That's all it takes. I'm really impressed with that engraving. That is clean and crisp. Let's take a look under the magnifying glass. That's your dark. That's the medium. And that's our light. So that's a wrap. Only thing left to do is to add my settings to a new category in the materials library I made in Lightburn. If you didn't see that video, I'll put a link to it up above me. Actually, I think it's on this side. And that shows you how to find that materials library on Thunder Laser USA, as well as easily load it into Lightburn. And I believe in that same video, I'll show you how to add new materials as you discover new settings. Thanks so much for sticking around. I hope you have a wonderful week. Please be kind to each other. And I hope to see you again here. I'm Gord Potter, and you've been watching Laser Nug. Cheers.